I'm Melissa.
And I'm Mike, and welcome back to the A&M podcast. I want to clear something up real quick, just in case no one said that there's confusion, but we kind of, with college football being in full swing, and that we kind of came to realize that it's possible people would find our podcast and think it had something to do with like Texas A&M University, which it does not. So
we are not even Texas A&M fans.
Nope.
So
I've
disclaimer.
rooted against them on many occasions. So
I would like to make an announcement as well. We also have A&M coffee cups now.
Yeah.
Thanks to you.
The merch shop is coming soon.
Merch shop coming soon if you want one, So cute because I'm A. So we have that now as well. If you're watching
Although
the video
people
version.
Might see that and go, you're a what? You're a what? I'm a...
Fill in the blank yourself. Yeah. Actually, you should have put a line under it for me. Okay. So
fully functioning coffee mugs.
Yeah, mine's not functioning. So.
No.
Currently. I'm using mine as a prop.
So today we wanted to talk about something that I think has in some way affected both of us, but not just because of that. So like, the whole thing of like, and recently there's been politicians that have been saying that let me get to the topic first, but we wanted to talk a little bit about like college student loans, and just kind of the whole way that college works, and how it's kind of not the way the system's designed right now. I think it's not really designed to be like completely functional for I think for the way the world works. And there's the whole issue that a lot of politicians are kind of jumping on the bandwagon on of student loan debt, which is a big problem. But I think there's also a bigger problem in that just the way the whole system's designed. It's designed to build up that student loan debt because it's so expensive. Did you? Is this just me?
I'm just listening to you.
Okay. I mean, you had some student loan debt, which is now paid off. I have some student.
I didn't have that much though. Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
Like just for the record, I only went to college. I don't even have my AA. I went to college for probably 2 years, and then I didn't like it, so I looked up. This is just to be completely transparent. Like I didn't really care for school in the first place, and to be completely honest, I didn't even really know what I wanted to do, and I didn't think that it was worth it. It wasn't worth it at the time for me to spend money continuously taking classes and taking courses just blindly when I didn't even know if I wanted to be anything that needs a college degree.
Right. And I think there's part of the problem too, is from the beginning is that like the way the system is right now, when you're going to high school, they're kind of pushing you towards higher education. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, but I changed what I wanted, what I thought I wanted to be a million times, and especially now, like what I do now, I never would have even thought that that was even a career option back then, in the first place. And I like what I do now, but it never was even like something. I feel like you're back then, when you're around that age, you're offered a very like almost like a box of careers. Like, am I going to be a nurse? Am I going to be
and the thing that they do too, because they did this when I was younger, is they try to get you to make decisions that are going to impact the rest of your life, when quite honestly you're too young and inexperienced to know. And I think that therein lies.
You've barely had a job.
Like there's so few people at 17 or 18 who really know what they like, what they want to do, all that. I mean, I was probably like back then a rarity because I was like already into computers back, I was like into computers when I was like 12, I think.
Right.
That's where you go. They had computers back then?
Nerd.
Yeah, that too. But but I think
Did they
so
really have
few
computers back then?
yes, they did.
Barely.
Barely. It was like there was a mouse that ran on a wheel
Yeah.
and I somehow but 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 haven't you ever watched the Flintstones? Come on. But
You're not that old.
but I think there's so few people who know at that age what they really want to do, and to expect somebody to make a decision of I'm going to go into 4 years of schooling for that. Now,
I mean, I think it's
I
also
guess
just the debt around it too.
yeah,
Like it's not just,
and
oh, let me try out this course like a trade or something like
right,
that. It's let me get into so much debt for something that I kind of think I want to be when I'm 18
yeah,
and now I'm 25. I have all this debt and I don't want to do this at all.
right, and
So,
that's like I mean from the student loan debt thing too. I mean, you know, to now you gave your background. My background, I started working in the field that I'm in before I had very little college. I think I had one semester of college, and then I quit to work as a department manager in a department store, and with the intention of going back and finishing the degree because I was going for an information technology degree, or I think they called it data processing degree back then. But I was going for that was the kind of degree I wanted to go for, so I had every intention of going back. Didn't go back. I ended up through some people would say luck. I say the grace of God. I got an opportunity to start working in software development. Um, just I happened to be at a company. I got a job doing like basically data entry, and ended up doing some things for the guy who was my boss, who was the head of accounting. Um, and it ended up being stuff that I was doing. I was doing software development for him, and then they had an opening. It was a very small company, but they had an opening where the person that was doing all that stuff for the computer systems needed another person, and they gave me an opportunity to go into that job. They sent me for training on it, and the rest is history.
well,
And
yeah, because I feel like a lot of, that's like I always joke, even in my job and every interview that I even ever have, I always joke and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I always look at any opportunity that I get as literally free school
oh,
because, with any job you have, any job you get for the most part, in a lot of different fields, what ends up happening is, I do the same job that I've always done, that I've done for years. But each company I go to, they have a different program they use. They have a different kind of, process they use. They
right,
have different customers. They just, it's all a little bit different. So either way, no matter how knowledgeable I am in my field, I still need training. I still got to learn how they do things. I still got to learn their systems. And yeah, it's literally free school and you're
yeah,
just gaining experience as you do it. And I know that that's not the case for a lot of people. I know even when
yeah,
we were growing up, you always used to say, use me as the exception, not the example. But I think for the most part, like when I started, I got an office job as a customer service person. I worked doing that customers, it was scheduling. I was scheduling things. They saw that I learned it quickly, and after 2 months, they needed someone in their billing department, and
hmm
they brought me on there. And I kind of, at that point, was like, okay, even if I don't like it, I'm going to do it for 2 years just so that I gain experience in it and I can put on my resume that I have this experience for
right,
2 years. Because a company really, if you've never done it before, they're not going to look at you with just a small amount of experience, no matter really how
yeah.
well you think you know the job, because I think you do know a job pretty well after a year. I think that a lot of companies, they want someone with a little more than that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like, to your point, like, diversity of experience is good too, though, because
Yeah.
it gets you more. Like, there may be problems you'll run into at the company you're at now that a place you were at before, like, had a way to deal with it that would work, you know.
Right.
So that kind of thing is good too. And like, so in my case, then though, the only thing that I found was when I got to a certain point in my career.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a point. This is beyond a point where I'd already managed an IT department for years, several different IT departments for years. But you get to a point where some companies, and there's a lot of them actually, won't even look at you without the degree. So I
Yeah.
went back and got my bachelor's degree,
Mm-hmm.
and and so, you know, I can feel for all these people, you know, getting into student loan debt because I know how expensive it was. And
Yeah.
you and I and your brothers were both kind of smart about it because we went to in Florida, if you're a Florida resident, any of the state schools here, and that's like, you know, I mean, I went to Seminole State, which used to be considered a community college, but now it's considered a state college.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to Florida, or if you're going to University of Central Florida, those are all considered state schools, and the tuition is relatively cheap. Now, relatively cheap is still expensive, but it's relatively cheap. And part of the problem, I think, in a general way, is the way we do school. Like in my case, I went in to finish. Oh boy, I need a cough button. I went in to finish a degree that I had started years earlier, but I already had all of the experience to do the job. And I can tell you that to get that degree, I wasted a lot of money and a lot of time
Mm-hmm.
taking courses that had absolutely nothing to do with the field that I was going to be working in.
For sure.
And I mean, I would generally say probably maybe not half, but pretty close to half the courses that I took were of no benefit to me in in the position that I was in. And the thing is, like, I also understand there are different like course or different college programs you can go through where it's well, you know, in that case you get like life credit and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but for the first like 2 years of for sure of
Right.
your school, you're taking a bunch of just like
Yeah, the general education
starter
stuff.
courses. Yeah,
Yeah.
like one of my classes, it was like Renaissance.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Renaissance.
I took one, and again, I took this when I was older, but I took one that was like it had something to do with art of film or something like that, and it was about like movie making, and it was
Yeah.
as you know, it was it interesting? Yeah, it was kind of interesting, but
But you're
was
paying
it
for
right?
that.
I'm
You're
paying for
paying
it,
for
and it
it.
was an utter waste of my time when it came to
Yeah,
my career. I
for
really
sure.
think, and I've said this for a while, I really think that the whole system needs to change.
Mhm.
And if you now, again, we already said not everybody knows at a young age like what they want to do. But if you're somebody who feels you do know what you want to do, your first 2 years of schooling should
Mhm.
be basically intensive education in your field, in the field that you think you want to go into. Because I think during that time, if it's not really of interest to you, you're going to
Mhm.
find it out really quick.
Oh, for sure.
And then the last, like, I don't even know that it needs to be 2 years, but the last part of your education should be working like an internship at a company doing the exact job that you've now spent 2 years learning how to do. Because and that's more along the lines of, I guess, the way like vocational schools work. But for most jobs, for your job, what you do, for what I do,
Mhm.
like that would be so much more, it would so much better prepare you for that field, for whatever you were going to be working in. And then on top of that, from like a well, from the standpoint of cost, it would be a lot less because you'd only be taking classes for 2 years. And you know, maybe that last year or two that you're working the internship, maybe even it's unpaid, and
Mhm.
somehow, you know, the company is paying the college, you know, what would be your tuition during that time or something like that.
Which some
that's how it
companies
balances
do.
out. Yeah, yeah. I'm just, my thinking is that then what the company gets is they get somebody who is working for them for a couple of years that's starting at very entry level. We both have that problem today.
I think it's because my coffee's cold.
Yeah,
it's not soothing my throat like it normally does.
That's what my problem is too. But they have somebody they have somebody who's been working for them for 2 years or a year or 2 years, and they've trained the person in the way that they do business. So then, when that person's done with that internship,
Yeah.
they're the ideal person to offer a job to, because now that they don't, but generally that they're doing things the way that your business wants them done.
Right.
And then and like I said, from the flip side of that, you're also not going into all this debt on courses that are, there's
Right.
also a lot of it that's a scam. Like, oh, we released the 12th edition of this book that has one page that's different. So now you can't buy the used copy from last year.
Yeah.
You have to buy the new edition. That is if I'm not a big like government regulation person, but that the government should have rules on that you can't release a new edition of a college textbook that costs $150
within like X amount of years.
Yeah,
or something.
because one page changed, and it's like, and I had cases where I bought the old one because I'm cheap, and you just have to figure out what the differences were.
Yeah, because some teachers don't care.
But then the bigger scam that they've started doing now is that you don't even buy a book. You buy like an access code to a website, and there is no previous year cheap version of that. So then they really have you. And that is also a big part of the cost of college, is all the materials and that. It's just
it's kind of like when I started working at the first job that got me into this career. When I first got hired, I don't even know if they officially were like, "You're hired. Do you want this job?" But it was the day of my interview, and it was the day that she was like, "Oh, we like you. We're gonna move you over. We would have you at this office," and she had me go over there, talk to the manager, and then they had me actually, because at that point I think they pretty much like knew that they wanted to hire me. There's just a lot of steps in their hiring process. Like, they're one of those companies. And they had me sit with somebody in the office and just kind of like watch what they do for like an hour or something. I think I sat there because they want you to see, like, okay, well, this is what you're going to be doing. This is kind of how like a part of your day is going to go. Majority of your day is going to go. Is this what you want? Because we don't want to go through all the steps of hiring you and having you, do the whole thing of a background check and a drug test and like waste their resources just for you to get hired and then be like, I thought this was going to be something different.
Right. Especially if it's something like that where it's like, entry level, where you haven't worked in that before, and you don't know what the day to day is going to be like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other, I think the other thing about it too is, like with the way that things are done now, and they're not like being kind of a focus on what you're going to do, because it's the same kind of thing with what I'm talking about, where you get into it. Like, I can't tell you the number of people that I know of who went to college for something.
Yeah.
They spent 4 years in it. They got out. Either they couldn't find a job in it at all and just went on and did something else, or they got a job in it, found out it wasn't what they wanted to be doing. Yeah. And so then, that 4 years that they spent in college was kind of a waste. So, that's also not good too.
Yeah. There's times I was just talking about it not too long ago. Like, for what I do, I probably, salary wise, I guess, like, make more a year and just have a better like 401k, health insurance, like that kind of setup than some people I know who have gotten degrees.
Oh, that's
because also
true.
I don't, again, like, I don't have a degree, and everything I've learned, It's always now that to be with that goes like, yeah, I've also had to spend, the last at least 5, 6 years, whatever it is, fighting for my life to to find jobs because
Right.
there are some jobs that I've even run into, and I think I'm very knowledgeable in what I do, and I've run into jobs where either just problems finding a job in my field that, is willing to pay me what I feel like my skills are deserved.
Right.
And then also, because I think a lot of companies also try to lowball you a little bit. Like they will ask for a degree, they will ask for all these like specifications, and then the pay is like
Yeah.
nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I have run into jobs even in what I do where a company will put in their post like you need a bachelor's degree and 5 years of experience, and me knowing what this entails and how very teachable it is.
Mm.
It's that specification to me is a little bit nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can see like, and there are certain fields that like, the best example would be like a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah,
You want them educated
absolutely.
to the fullest extent.
Mhm.
Um, even there though, you could make the argument that like the first 4 years of schooling for somebody in that field is
Mhm.
just a general degree, I believe. So then they're going through a lot of that same stuff too. And
Yeah.
I think when we get into that whole discussion of like the student loan forgiveness that they were trying to do and are I guess still trying to do, but
Mhm.
you know, I think the problem with that is that you're not dealing with the problem on the front side, which is the cost, because
Yeah.
until you, especially then if you get it to the point where you're taking the consumer even further out of the process, the consumer being the person paying for it,
Mhm.
further out of the process, that's just going to cause the costs to go up more. It's not going to, you're not going to reduce costs by now somebody else, and that somebody else being the government, meaning that everyone everyone in the country is paying. Um, that's You're not going to reduce the cost by doing that.
And people are still going to school to this day, racking up more student loan debt
Oh yeah,
anyway, so it's
yeah.
kind of
While we
it's a
speak.
never ending, yeah, it's a
Yep.
never ending kind of circle.
Yeah. So I think, like to your point, I think there are um a lot of jobs that you could do. Like honestly, um, the company I was at before the one I'm at now, the guy who was my boss there said on several occasions, like he doesn't think people in the field that I'm in really need a degree. Like if you've had,
Yeah.
if you know what you're doing, one, if you've had, some kind of training, and I think for software development, I think that like the better training is more specialized anyway.
Yeah.
Um, that serves better, than spending time getting a 4-year degree. And I think, like generally,
For
that's been my
sure.
experience too. I honestly, when I've hired people, like even if it's part of the job description, because maybe we're using generic job descriptions, I would never exclude somebody because they didn't have a degree. Because I know there's a high likelihood of people that have a lot of experience and just a lot of experience and are really smart and just don't have a degree. Um, so I think, and I think like in your field, a similar type of thing. I think there's just got to be a better model for how
I think
people get educated than like one thing that comes back to me is like when I was in school, and I don't know if they still have these kind of things, but they had vocational like VOTAC
I think they have
schools.
things like that.
Yeah, and it was like if you wanted to, and that was more focused on trades. Like if you wanted to get into carpentry or be an
Like
electrician or
mechanic.
body shop or mechanic, yeah, you would go there. And like when I was in school, it was you spent a half day there learning whatever you were trying to learn, and then you spent the other half of your day doing your general education classes. Um, and I think like that was actually kind of a good model. Again, it was depending on somebody who was even younger now, though. Somebody who was, you know, how old are you when you get into high school? Like 14 or 15
Yeah.
to decide what they wanted to do. But at the same time, because you're not paying for that, if you go through that and you go, yeah, that's not really what I wanted to
It's
do,
just to see if you're passionate about it.
yeah, then you can move on and do something else. But very worst case, you learn some skills. You learn how to do something, um, that you wouldn't maybe have gotten to learn otherwise.
So, what would your advice be to somebody who wants to get into like even your field? But
It's getting harder. Like it's getting I, I know someone who lives in this house who tried to go through like a boot camp type course
yeah,
yeah, you know what I'm saying,
yeah.
like a boot camp to learn software development,
You
and
get
then
like a
tried to get a job.
certificate at the end,
Yeah,
basically. You do a class, you do school. Like he had
yeah.
school,
I
he
think it
had
was like 12
classes.
weeks of classes he
Yeah,
went
you
through,
take a test at the end
and it
and then
was
you get a
heavily
certificate.
project based.
Hmm.
And in the end,
He did have
he
to
did that a
pay
couple of
for
years.
it.
He did have to pay for it,
Yeah,
and he did pay for it.
yeah,
But in the end, and that was a while ago, and he's
yeah.
hasn't been able to find anything in the field. And the part of the problem is because the people who are looking, even if you look at entry level, what they call entry level,
Hmm.
it's um, they're still saying, yeah, but we want somebody with 1 to 2 years experience. How
Yep.
does anyone get experience in that model? So
You know what it is? It's that, like, if I could give any advice to get into anything, like, literally anything, it's to get a very entry level, not even very entry level, but just get your foot in the door in a company,
hmm
because once you're in that company, even if you are, the receptionist at the front desk, or again, like kind of I did, like I got hired as a scheduler just because I wanted an office job. I didn't even know like what I do now was even an option again to like work in the first place. But
right,
I think what it comes down to is getting your foot in the door at a company as something lower, because once they see that you're a good worker, once they see that you are teachable, once they see like all of those good qualities about you, they will, that you can kind of ask around, and if you know that they're hiring for something that you want to get into, like I don't know,
right.
even I my best friend, she kind of started like that too at the company she's at, and she kind of does similar things that you do. And she started as just a regular employee and then kind of worked herself up
Yep,
internally, and they paid for her school, I'm pretty sure. And
yep.
she worked herself up in that company.
Now let me ask you this though: is the company she's at a smaller company, or are they a bigger company?
Kind of middle.
Middle? Because I find that if you're in a larger company, it's a lot less likely that that would happen than at a smaller company, um, or small to medium sized company, I guess I would say, because the smaller
Yeah.
sized businesses like that are the ones that are more trying to do, the maximum they can, and
And
that's
like
that's
move up
exactly.
internally and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah, they're
that.
more wanting to grow from within than larger companies that have, giant policy manuals on how they do hiring and requirements and all that. And they're
Yeah,
not going to be as likely to do that
true.
because of that. And my experience, I mean, you were just talking about your experience and how you got it. That's exactly, I already talked about it. That's exactly what happened with me. Like I had some knowledge of,
Hmm.
software development, but I had no experience in it. I think I had even applied honestly for jobs that were my background and didn't get, and even more recently, I there's a company that's a local company here in Florida, big company, very big company, and I, um, gosh, probably 15, 20 years ago, I applied to them for a position that was literally exactly the job that I was already doing for
Hmm.
another company. It was all, my experience was exactly what they were looking for. And if you looked at my resume, you would see that my experience was exactly what they were looking for. And I couldn't get past HR because at that point I didn't have a degree. And it was just mind blowing to
Crazy.
me because but that's the large company mindset versus the small to me, because I ran into a similar thing, um, for another company that I worked for a while, that I loved working for, and but when I got hired, or after, I had accepted the job offer, the HR person, because I had listed that I attended college, was reading it as me saying that I had a degree. And when they did the background check, it came back that I didn't have the degree. And I said, well, my resume doesn't say that I have a degree. It says that I attended. And, oh, I don't know, that might be a problem. And of course, the guy who was the hiring manager was somebody who didn't really care about that. I don't even think I don't know if he had a degree. He might have, but he didn't care about any of that. So he was like, no, that's not a problem. But, so that's, I mean, that's why when you ask what advice would I give somebody, I don't even know. I don't know how I would get into this field today, because, the job search in general is so much harder today than it used to be. It used to be, back when, well, we had the stone tablets, and they'd send you no, I mean, when it used to be, I mean, even when, like, the internet job thing first came around,
Yeah.
it wasn't, you weren't competing against thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and today you are. And it, the, I guess the decision process, that first layer, is happening so much based on algorithms and not based on, human interacting with your resume at all. Like, a human doesn't even see it necessarily.
There's so many times that I would be applying for jobs on Indeed. Shout out. And they, they have the section where it says, like, oh, what does it say? Where, how at the end it'll, like, ask you some, like, required things that
Oh yeah,
the company wants to, like, ask you or
yeah,
whatever. And it'll say at least a bachelor's degree, or at least 4 years in college, or it'll say something like that. And once you select no, and then you go to the bottom and you click to go, like, next to move
yep,
on, it'll literally kick it back and, like, red flag you and be
yeah.
like,
Say
sorry,
sorry, you
this
can't.
company is
Yep.
only looking for people with
Yeah,
a
and
degree.
that's so short-sighted. I mean, like, again,
I'm like, I have 5 years of
yeah,
experience.
the
What?
thing to me with that is, like, if you're looking for somebody to be, like, head accountant, and you want somebody who's a CPA, I can totally understand that. But for most jobs to
Hmm.
be that way is, it's kind of silly to me. Most jobs,
Yeah.
but that's where the whole, going back to the original topic, that's where the whole thing comes from, though, that when
Yeah.
you're in high school, everybody's telling you got to get into, like, you got to make sure you get everything, in your ducks in a row so that you can get into a good
Like,
college. And
college is the only
yeah,
option. Yeah.
college is the only option. They don't really even talk to kids today, I don't think, about, like, any of the trade type stuff, like being a carpenter, or an electrician or anything like that. Like, I feel like that now happens after people get out of high school. People who, couldn't go the college route for whatever reason and are just looking for a job, maybe they get some kind of apprenticeship doing that kind of thing, and I think that's how they learn today.
I
And it's
think
such a mistake.
I think it really, like, unfortunately, I think it really does come down to, at the end of the day, like, they always say it's who you know, and it really is, at the end of the day, about who you know, I think. And not even who you know in terms of, like, oh, I talk to my neighbor all the time and she's hiring and she knows some. It's
Right.
not even about that as much as it's just about really, like, building your connections. And, when they tell you not to burn bridges, don't burn your bridges, because
No.
you really don't know who can offer, like, who's going to work for where someday that you might need
Right.
them
Yeah,
to
sometimes
remember you.
people have a tendency when they're leaving a company to be like, I'm gonna tell them what I think of them, and that kind of thing, and that's
It's
never,
not even worth it. They don't even
because
care.
honestly, I can't tell you the number of times that I've been at a company, left, and then
Yeah.
ended up in some way working with people that I worked with there again, um,
Right.
or directly working for the company again, even
Yeah.
because because I left under good terms, and because I had a good, reputation while I was there. And, like,
Yeah.
there's no point. I'll give you,
Having that
here's a story
reference
for you.
also very important.
Oh
when you're
yeah.
trying to move on as well. Like you want to
Yeah.
keep that as positive of a reference as possible because the higher you keep climbing up, y'all, they're calling your references. They're calling
Yeah.
your past jobs.
Yeah, right.
You
Yep. So quick story for you. Um, when the first job that I was at, where they gave me the chance to move into that programmer role,
Yeah.
the company that I was at, they had originally offered it to a different guy who worked at the company who was in a similar position to the one I was in. Not like it was a kind of a really low level job, office job, but kind of a low level type job.
Yeah.
And this guy wanted to get into that field too. Like I had already done some schooling in it, so when they talked to me about it, I was like, I'll take it. I didn't even ask them how much more it was going to pay. I didn't ask any of that. I was just like, yes, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Well, the other guy, basically, um, he was trying to leverage it that he was going to be getting like similar pay to what the person who was my boss at the time was getting.
Yeah.
He was really trying to like push the envelope on what he was going to get. And he was doing it for so long that they got really frustrated with him, and then they just offered it to me, and I jumped at it and took it, and took off. But um, he had some he had some issues, I guess, with that, and he actually tried to sabotage me in the job.
Oh my goodness.
And make it look like I had messed something up. There was a process that we had to do every couple of months. I think it was related to when the company was doing their physical inventory. And he set something up in a process that I had to run so that it would have like removed all the data from the system that I ran this on, which at the time it was the guy who was the head of accounting. It was on his system. And it was just by chance that I was looking at something in the process because I wanted to make sure that I was running the right part of it and I saw that he had done this. And well, I saw that this had been done. I mean, it was basically, if you're familiar with Windows command prompt, or back in the day it was called MS-DOS, it was basically doing a delete star, which removed everything from the system, and it did it in such a way that I wouldn't notice that it was doing it. And so when I saw that, first of all, I turned pale white because I was like, I almost ran this thing without looking at it. And then I went and talked to my boss and told her what I had seen, and we, looked through some logs to see who had changed the file and that kind of thing, and found out that this guy did it. And the guy ended up losing his job over it, but he also destroyed his reputation. So
especially for just starting out in it.
Yeah, and it like anywhere where he went, if they like called that company to get a recommendation, they would, I believe. Now I don't know back then. I know now it's a lot touchier what you're able to say.
Yeah, but what they ask, like you can't purposely. What I've known is you can't purposely sabotage someone, but at the same time, if you sabotage yourself by like making yourself not hire backable.
Right.
Like,
well, I think today that's what they can say is like, would you rehire him? And the answer would have been no.
Yeah.
But I think back then they could say more. I think back then they could have said no. He was fired with cause.
Right.
I think back then they were able to. I might be wrong about that, but I just
HR folks tap in.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. But all I could think at the time was like, how could you be so, like? It was his fault in the first place that he didn't have the job. Yeah. And again,
that's just reacting off emotions.
I tell you this all the time. I say it all the time. Everything happens for a reason.
Right.
Even that happened for a reason, because him being so kind of, just trying to overplay his hand on getting that job caused me to get it. So, yeah. Everything happens for a reason. But I just can't imagine doing that, actually doing something like that. I mean, from his standpoint, I guess he thought that he wasn't going to get caught, that it was going to, I was going to run it, it was going to delete everything, I was going to look like I didn't know what I was doing, and maybe he'd get offered the job, and then he'd be able to leverage it because they'd be like, oh, that last guy he gave it to, well, it didn't work out that way for him. So there's my advice. Don't
my
sabotage other
goodness.
people in your job because it'll never end well.
But yeah, I mean, I just think that also it's very beneficial too if you're just starting out, also not being super picky.
Yeah.
Because I think once you gain a little bit of experience, like right now I'm picky. I'm a little pickier.
Not me.
I'm pretty picky and like, well, I'm picky in terms of salary and I'm picky in terms of like also what I want to be doing. Like
Yeah.
I work from home and I'm able to be picky in that sense. But if I was just starting out, I would kind of take what I could get in the beginning because you're starting out at that point, you're just trying to build your resume.
Yeah.
You don't really have the flexibility or even the really like, I guess, knowledge based, at least in the company's point of view, to be picky about salary. If you gotta
Right.
take a take a lower job in the beginning for like a year or two, suck it up. It'll fly by.
Yeah. Especially because like when you're younger, it's a lot easier to do that too. Like if you're
Right.
young and you're living at home or whatever, it's a lot easier to do that than when you get older. And if you follow that advice, by the time you get to the point where you can't say, well, I can take a lower paying job, you won't have to.
Yeah, because at that point, you'll have the skill set to kind of back it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you don't have to, don't go into student loan debt. And if you can get somebody else to pay for it, like a job, do it.
Yeah, no, because that is a thing that a lot of
Yeah.
jobs do. I see that all the time.
Yeah.
That they'll that they'll pay for your school if it's like relevant. I do know with those kind of things you do have to like keep a certain GPA
Yeah.
obviously.
And you also usually, so in some cases, they'll want you to stay for a certain number of years, or you've
Yeah.
got to reimburse them for it, which is fair. That's fair.
Yeah, but yeah.
So if you're trying to figure out if you want to go to college, uh,
This is a
yeah,
good time
it depends.
for us to do this video too because it's back to school.
Yeah, that's right.
We should have done it I guess before back to school because now if you're already in
Yeah.
school, sorry.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if there's
Leave
anyone
now.
taking our advice on these things anyway.
I think they should. I think
They should. I
we're a
know.
knowledge-based
Also,
platform. This is
I feel
free
like
advice,
I know.
okay?
I
What?
feel like this was our least funny episode that we've done.
This
So
one.
I
Do
should
you
have
want to like
saved.
tell a couple jokes at the end to
I
end
didn't
it
save
out?
any dad jokes for the end, or
Oh.
no. Although, you know,
You
what
made
did,
a
what,
dad
what,
joke in the
what did I
beginning.
keep? No, the other day we went to brunch with Nana and JoJo,
Uh-huh.
and there was something that I told JoJo I was thinking about bringing for her or something like that, but then I didn't. I said, but they say it's the thought that counts, so you're welcome. It's the thought that counts, so you're welcome.
Because you thought about it, but you didn't bring it.
I thought about it, but I didn't do it. So
Oh,
that's going to be my new motto, though. Like, yeah, when the holidays come or somebody's birthday,
Don't get anyone's present.
I thought about getting you this really nice thing, but I didn't. But I thought about it, and it's the thought that counts, so you're welcome. So that's the
so
thought for
funny.
the day.
See, that's a funny
Yeah.
part to end
There we
on.
go.
I need something like for our clips. I gotta,
Yeah.
during this episode. That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking about.
Yeah, make sure you're checking us out on everywhere. Spotify. If you want to watch some video, it's on Spotify, but we're on iHeart. We're on YouTube, podcasts. Soon we're gonna put, I think, the full videos of
By the time
video
this
podcasts up on
no.
YouTube.
Yeah, by the time
Yeah.
this comes out, this will be on YouTube.
Yeah, and where else?
We're on
Where else?
Apple
We're on
Apple. I was gonna say
yeah.
Apple Music. We also are
Yeah.
artists.
Yeah.
After we shut the camera off, we
Yeah.
sing into these
Do,
microphones.
But and we're also on
We're on iHeartRadio.
Amazon podcasts as well.
Amazon has podcasts?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
on all of it.
Yeah, we're everywhere.
We're in your
Like,
living room.
Yeah, you're gonna just turn on the radio and we're just gonna be there. So that's all.
Anyways, y'all, until next time.
Have a good day.
Bye.